Start the Gemara today towards the bottom of Tzad Gimel Amud Beis, Itma. So we learned yesterday about this, and now the Gemara brings a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel about this halacha. Bottom of Tzad Gimel Amud Beis. Itma kaisel shebein shtei chatzeres shenafal. A wall between two chatzeres that fell. So when Shabbos came in, that wall was up. So if the wall was up, what happened? The people of every chatzer made their own Erev chatzeres. But now, middle of Shabbos, the wall falls down, so they're not living in separate chatzeres. It's all one large chatzer. So now it changes. They have to make an Erev chatzeres together. Are they going to be allowed to carry at all? The Erev chatzeres that they made before Shabbos is l'chayda not effective anymore. So the Gemara Rav Amar Ei metaltelem boyele b'dal damis. Now that the wall fell down, so they can't carry more than dal damis. In other words, Rav's shitta is, we don't say in such a case, the klal, kivin shehutra hutra, that once it became mutter when Shabbos came in, it's mutter for the rest of Shabbos. They can't carry anymore. Shmuel says no. Zeh metaltel ad ikke mechitza, v'zeh metaltel ad ikke mechitza. That the same heter of the Erev Chatzeres that they made when Shabbos came in remains, and each person can carry in their chatzer, even though now the wall fell down and it became one large chatzer. Rashi explains that obviously what we're talking about over here is being metaltal kalim from the house into the chutzah. If you're talking about carrying any kalim that were in the chutzah when Shabbos came in, so this goes back to what we learned before, the beginning of this Pedic, Rab Shimon says, and we passing like Rab Shimon, anything that was outdoors, you can carry from one chutzah to another without an Erev Chatzeres. The need for the Erev Chatzeres is what was indoors, to carry from the house into the chutzah. So when it says there in the Gemara, Zeh metaltel adike mechitza v'zeh metaltel adike mechitza, it's referring to the kalim that were in the house. So this is the machlokes. Shmuel holds kivin shehutra hutra, and therefore the fact that it fell down, it doesn't matter. Zok the Gemara v'had Rav lav b'feidish itmar. The halacha of Rav, he never said so clearly, but we learned it from an incident that happened. Elam klali itmar, from the following incident. The Rav and Shmuel have a yasvi b'chatzer, b'ahu chatzer. Rav and Shmuel were both sitting in a chatzer on Shabbos. Nafal gude the beini beini, and there, middle of Shabbos, as they're sitting there, the wall between one chatzer and another fell down. Amalu Shmuel. So Shmuel said to one of the people that are there, Shkulu glima, take a garment and a giduba, hang it up to put up a wall over here. Okay, what happened? Adrinu Rav lape. Rav turned his face away. Why did he turn his face away? So Rashi explains, because he held that you're not allowed to pick up any sheet or any garment to make this wall, because you can't carry. Now that the wall fell down, so the whole laid of chatzeres that you made before is not good anymore. It's one big chatzer, and so you can't carry b'chlal more than dal damas. So he turned away his face.
What about oil arai?
So that's another issue. It's another issue of making oil arai. Rashi's opinion is that an oil arai is not an issue when you make a wall. Oil arai is only an issue when you make a roof. So according to Rashi, that's not an issue. But other Rishonim actually say that was another reason why Rav turned away his face. The Rashi here is a big arichas, and he says that it's true, that really Rav turned away his face because of two reasons. First of all, because now he held the Erev Chatzeres is not good anymore. And second of all, you're making oil. Yeah.
Pashas, there was no garment in the chutzner.
What do you mean? Oh, they're saying it was brought from the house. Yeah. Okay. Amalahu Shmuel, but that's, 1 second, no garment in the chutzner. I have to think about that. Amalahu Shmuel, so Shmuel said to them, Ikapid Abba. If Abba, which is Rav, if he's makbid on this, Shkula Hemine Vikatruba. I'm so sure, I'm so confident that I'm right, take his own gartel and tie down this mechitza that I'm telling you to put up with it. So Shmuel doubled down on his opinion that I'm right and you should go and put up this mechitza. Okay, so this was the incident that happened where Shmuel said after the wall fell down, you were allowed to carry in the mechitza, in the chatzah that is, and Rav held you can't. Fragt the Gemara, Shmuel. Now if Shmuel held that in a case where the wall falls down, so the heter of before Shabbos remains, so lama liha, why was it b'chlal necessary to put up this mechitza? Ha'oma, what Shmuel said, Shmuel holds without putting up a new mechitza, you could anyways carry over here in the chutzner. So the Gemara says, you're right, Shmuel avad l'tznius b'alma. He wasn't saying to put up a wall because without this new wall, the Erev Chatzeres would be bottled. He just wanted to have privacy. That's it. Now the Gemara asks the opposite, V'Rav, isvira leida aser. If Rav disagreed with Shmuel and he held that it's forbidden, so lei melei. Why didn't he say so clearly? Why didn't he speak up? He turns away his face. Why? And it says the Gemara, Asrei Shmuel Have. This incident took place in the place where Shmuel lived. So Shmuel was the Rav there, so Rav didn't want to object to his psak din. So if so why is he even turning his face away? The Rav says something, you should accept it. And says the Gemara, because there are other people that are observing what's going on, and they're going to think that he's actually agreeing to Shmuel. He didn't want anyone to think that he agrees. And he retracted his opinion. So therefore, he turned away his face that people should understand that, but he didn't speak up because it's Shmuel's place and Shmuel's the Rav over there. The Rishonim here say that this is a Gemara where you see very clearly when it comes to a Rav in a city, and a Rav gives a psak, even if you disagree, you're not allowed to speak up. There's a few exceptions. There are certain cases when it's mamish like atah. The Ritva here says if it's atah b'dvar mishnah, if it's something that's mamish very clear, so then even if it's a Rav in a city, you could speak up against it. It's only if it's something that a Rav paskins in shikol adas, where it's not a clear mishnah, which means it's not a clear halach in Shulchan Aruch, then you're not allowed to speak up. And another exception would be the famous thing the Gemara says, "B'makom chilul Hashem ein cholkin kavod l'Rav." If it's an issue of chilul Hashem, so then you're allowed to speak up. Otherwise, if there's some people that say like this, some people that say like that, and a Rav in your city paskins a certain way, you're not allowed to speak up against a Rav in your city to voice your opinion. Zok the Mishnah, chotze shenifritz al reshus harabim. A chotze that has 3 walls, and the 4th wall is completely open to the reshus harabim. So the Tanakhama says as follows: Hamachnis mitzaycha l'reshus hayachid. If you carry from that area to a reshus hayachid, or reshus hayachid l'taycha, or from the reshus hayachid into this area, chayiv. You're going to be chayiv because this area that's open to the reshus harabim has a din of a reshus harabim. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, and the Gemara is going to explain why. Why is it that just because it's open to the reshus harabim, it has a halacha of reshus harabim? The Chachamim say, "Mitaycha l'reshus harabim, reshus harabim l'taycha potter." It's not a reshus harabim. You're going to be potter. B'tnei shehika karmelis. This chatzah that's open on the 4th side is not a reshus hayachid. It's not a reshus harabim either. It has the status of a karmelis. So the Gemara is going to explain what's exactly the machlokes, and the question over here is. Let's see the lashon of the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer, mishum the nifritz al reshus harabim. Just because the 4th wall is open to the reshus harabim, havila reshus harabim, that makes it a reshus harabim. Usually we know what's the halacha with the reshus hayachid. That as long as it has 3 walls, it's really a reshus hayachid. Right? We had by a mavi, for example. Why do you have to put up a lechi or a kaira at the opening of a mavi? It's only a takana v'derabbanan. Minat Torah, a place that has 3 walls, is a reshus hayachid. So why is this area now a reshus harabim according to Rabbi Eliezer? Says the Gemara, yes, it is going to be a reshus harabim. You know why? Because in that place where it's open, people are walking there. And Rabbi Eliezer l'taimei, Rabbi Eliezer follows his opinion. The Tanya we learned in Abraisa, Rabbi Yehuda oimim mishum Rabbi Eliezer, Rabim shebiriru derech la'atzmam. If you have many people that are walking somewhere in a person's private property, they made themselves a pathway to walk through there. Mashebiriru biriru. The place that they chose, that they walk through, it becomes. They have the permission to walk through there, and now it becomes a reshus harabim. So let's say, in other words, this is a chiddush of Rabbi Eliezer. Let's say the rabbim decide to walk somewhere and they have no permission to walk there. It's a private property. Does it become a reshus harabim? No, they have no permission to walk there, b'chlal. But Rabbi Eliezer holds, no, if the rabbim made a pathway to walk there, it now becomes, they have the right. It becomes a reshus harabim. So the same thing happened over here with this wall that fell down. Because the wall fell down, the people of the reshus harabim are walking in that area, and they have the permission, and therefore becomes part of the reshus harabim. But the Gemara asks us this: is this true? Aini? Rav Gidl said in the name of Rav, the rabbim can't just go and make a pathway in a private person's field and then claim that they have the right to walk there. It doesn't work that way. But it's only the only way that this is true is if in that area there was a way for the rabbim to go through, and over years the exact pathway became unknown, and now they want to re-establish the pathway, and they chose a certain way, even though they're not sure exactly where it was, because they had a certain claim over this area that the rabbim used to walk there. Then, if they go there, we say that they have the right. But not stam in a case where a wall fell down, and now people start walking there. They don't have the right to walk there. So you can't compare it to that din of Rabbi Eliezer. And that's so the Gemara continues now. Now, if you're going to argue and say Hachanami, the pshat in our Mishnah as well is also kagoin she'avdullah derech ba'isa chatzar. That maybe over here there was an argument about this as well. The people of the Rishus HaRabim claim that this person built his chatzar out too far into the Rishus HaRabim, and he put up the wall. And now the wall fell down, and the people of the Rabbim claim that no, this was really belonging to the Rishus HaRabim, and therefore they began walking there, and that's why it becomes a Rishus HaRabim. That's the case of the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, but Rab Chanina said in the pshat of our Mishnah here, ad mokim mechitza machlokes, that the whole machlokes in the Mishnah between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim is until the place of the mechitza, meaning that they're arguing when you get to the inside, the interior of the chutzner. That's what their argument is about. In the place where the mechitza was, and that which is right near the Rishus HaRabim, and it fell down, that they're not arguing about. That everyone would agree is the Rishus HaRabim. What are they arguing about? About the interior of the chutzner. Regarding the interior of the chutzner, there's no argument about that. The people of the Rishus HaRabim don't claim that they used to have a pathway to walk there. Maybe there where the wall was and it fell down, people claim that he built out too far, and there they used to have a pathway to walk. But if the machlokes is even further in, how could you say that according to Rabbi Eliezer, that would be a Rishus HaRabim? So the Gemara says, no, we're going to have to change what Rab Chanina said. Eime al mokem mechitza machlokes. Not ad, but al. On that area where the wall was and it fell down, that's where the Rabbi Eliezer and the Chacham and the Mishnah are arguing. Rabbi Eliezer says, right over there, near the Rishus HaRabim, people claim that there used to be a Derech HaRabim here, and therefore now that the wall fell down, that's where they're walking, and therefore it becomes a Rishus HaRabim. Okay, this is one pshat in the Mishnah. So according to this pshat, the whole machlokes over here is not on the entire chutzner. The machlokes is over there, in that area where the wall was, near the Rishus HaRabim. Another pshat, Dr. Gemara, another pshat here is B'tzidei Rishus HaRabim Kamiflagi. This is a general machlokes regarding the sides of Rishus HaRabim. It's not only another. The first pshat was saying is it's a place that there was really an argument. They claim that they used to have rights to walk there. Now the Gemara says no. Any area that's near the Rishus HaRabim and the people of the Rabbim are spilling into that area and are walking over there, there's a machlokes whether it becomes part of the Rishus HaRabim. The Rabbi Eliezer Sava Tzidei Rishus HaRabim Rishus HaRabim, the size of Rishus HaRabim where the people of the Rabbim walk there becomes part of the Rishus HaRabim. Domu. The Rabbanan Savri Tzidei Rishus HaRabim Lav Rishus HaRabim. Domu. Rabbanan say no. The size of the Rishus HaRabim is not part of the regular place to walk in the Rishus HaRabim, and it's not part of the Rishus HaRabim. We once had this in Gemara Shabbos a long time ago. This machlokes was brought up about the sides of Rishus HaRabim. Really, the sides of the Rishus HaRabim, it's not part of the regular way to walk. It's the place where people put their private things, like in front of their houses. That's where they put their private things. But when there's a lot of traffic, people spill into that area, so therefore Rabbi Eliezer holds it becomes part of the Rishus HaRabim. And that's what we're talking about over here.
Mishnah talks about this?
Yes, when our Mishnah says that the kaisel of the chatzah fell, it becomes tzidei Rishus HaRabim because people walk there when there's a lot of traffic. Frek the Gemara, if that's the pshat in our Mishnah, so v'lif like b'tzidei Rishus HaRabim. So why is the Mishnah talking about a chatzah and the kaisel fell? Let them clearly argue about a case of tzidei Rishus HaRabim. So the Alma, B'chlal. And for the Gemara, no. If they would be arguing about any case of Tzidei Rishus HaRabim, Hava Amrinon, then I would say that the basis of the machlokes is Ki Pligi Rabbanan Ale de Rabbi Eliezer. When the Rabbanan arguing Rabbi Eliezer, Hani Mile Hechedeki Chifufi. Usually, Tzidei Rishus HaRabim is an area between the houses and the street. A person puts up like these little poles or little maybe some pebbles or things to make it not so comfortable for the Rabbim to walk there. Chifufi. Chifufi is what? How do they touch chifufi there? It's like these little poles or little blockages, so it shouldn't be so comfortable for people. Barriers, like these little barriers that it shouldn't be so comfortable for people to walk there. So maybe that's why the Chachamim hold that it's not considered to be a Rishus HaRabim. But in a case where there's no barriers whatsoever, maybe I would say that the Rabbanan agree that the Tzidei Rishus HaRabim does become part of the Rishus HaRabim. Kamash Malon, that's why a Mishnah says that the machlokes is even in a case where the wall fell down and there's no barrier. It's an area that's easy for the people to walk by, and still the Rabbanan hold that it's not a Rishus HaRabim, and Rabbi Eliezer holds that it is a Rishus HaRabim. So they're arguing whether there's barriers there, whether there's not barriers there. Okay, so that's the second pshat in our Mishnah. Frek the Gemara on both pshatim, but v'hami toicha ka'amar. According to both pshatim we just said, the whole argument over here is only by the border, basically, where the wall was and the wall fell down. Either because people have an argument that they used to always have this way, or because it's called tzidei reshus harabim. But if you look into the Mishnah, it says mitoicha. Hamachnis mitoicha. What does he use the term mitoicha? Mitoicha is mashma, talking about the interior of this place. And it says the Gemara, Aidi, the Amar Rabbanan mitoicha, because the Rabbanan use the term mitoicha, and they are saying that they are talking about the entire interior. Amar iyunami mitoicha. So Rabbi Eliezer also uses that term, but he really doesn't mean mitoicha. He only means that area where the wall was, that's close to the reshus harabim. So now the Gemara asks, V'Rabbanan.
What is the Rabbanan?
Oh, let's see. The Gemara is going to explain. V'Rabbanan, now the Rabbanan, Rabbi Eliezer, tzidei reshus harabim. Rabbi Eliezer is talking about the tzidei reshus harabim. Mahadrulei inu mitoicha. And the Rabbanan answer Rabbi Eliezer, and they say mitoicha. That's not what the machlokes is about, Bechlal. They're arguing about that area that's open to the reshus harabim, right near the reshus harabim. So why is the Rabbanan using the term mitoicha? Answers the Gemara, Hachi kamle Rabbanan Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbanan is using this term because Rabbanan are telling Rabbi Eliezer, Mi loika maidislan, don't you agree to us, that heiche, the tiltal, mitoicha l'reshus harabim, and reshus harabim l'toicha de potter? Don't you agree that in the interior of this place, it's not a reshus harabim? You're going to be potter, it's going to have the halacha of a karmelis. Tzidei nami loishna. So if the interior of this place is not a reshus harabim, so even by the border, by the wall, it's also not a reshus harabim. So Rabbanan were using the term mitoicha to explain his opinion, that he considers it all to be the same status. But Rabbi Eliezer says no. Hasam like kadar sila rabim. You go further inside the chutzner, people don't walk there. Hacha kadar sila rabim. The place where the wall was, now people are walking there. So therefore, that's not the same thing like mitoicha. So the interesting thing over here is, this is an unusual halacha here. The Gemara says that it's called a karmelis. Mitoicha potter mipnei shi karmelis. It's a very big chiddush, because b'derech klal, when you have an area that's open on just on one side and it's enclosed from three sides, it doesn't have a halacha of a karmelis. Maybe midrabanan, they're machmer, that it has a halacha of a karmelis because it's open, like by a mavli. You're not allowed to carry more than 4 amos if you don't have a lechi and a kaira. But minat taira, this area is enclosed with 3 walls, and it should have a halacha as a reshus hayachid. And if that's the case, why does it say here in the Gemara that if you're mitzi Mireshus harabim l'toicha, you potter because it's a karmelis. You potter. It's l'chayr. It's mamish reshus hayachid. Midayrais, this place is a reshus hayachid. This is a question that the Rishonim ask over here. How could you say that it's a karmelis? Okay, so it's a shver shtickle. Some Rishonim say that this Gemara is a very big chiddush, that in such a case, usually takad halacha is you have an area that's surrounded with 3 walls. It's a reshus hayachid. But over here, because by the opening, the people are flowing in from the reshus harabim, there's a flow over that the people are walking there, so over here the 3 walls are not good enough. The only time when 3 walls are good enough is when nobody is coming in b'chlal. But if the rabbim are flowing over by the entrance, so then 3 walls won't be good enough, and it's going to have a halacha of a karmelis. It's not even a reshus hayachid min ha-Torah.
It's enough to make us.
Yeah. To make another wall, to make it a full reshus hayachid.
I'm not talking about a wall, even to make a
just a lechi.
Just a lechi is enough.
Yeah. Okay. Zok the Mishnah chatzah shenifritz al reshus harabim mishteiru chisel. You have a courtyard that was opened up. The wall of the courtyard broke open on 2 sides. V'chein bayis shenifritz mishteiru chisel, or a house that the wall of the house broke open from 2 sides. Or a mavoi that's enclosed from 3 sides, and you have a lechi and a kaira on the 4th side, and that was removed in the middle of Shabbos. Mutarim ba'isa Shabbos. If it happened in the middle of Shabbos, you'll still be allowed to carry in that area. But vasurim lasud lavai. The following Shabbos it'll be aser. So this is based again on the klal that in the same Shabbos kivin shehutra hutra. Devrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosi disagrees. Im mutarin la'isa Shabbos. If you're going to tell me that on this Shabbos it's going to be mutar, mutarin lasud lavai. It should be mutar next Shabbos as well. But vim asurin lasud lavai, if it's asa next Shabbos, so asurin la'isa Shabbos. It should be asur already this Shabbos. In other words, Rabbi Yosi is saying, since it's obvious that next Shabbos it's going to be asur, so therefore it's going to be asur for this Shabbos as well. Rabbi Yosi does not hold of this klal, kivin shehutra hutra, at least not in this case. Okay, but what did it say over here in this Mishnah? When is there an issue when you have a breach in your chutzner or in your house when the breach was on two sides, not if it was on one side. So the Gemara wants to understand why two sides. But my askinon, how wide was this breach? So we had before a cloud, we learned it many times, that a breach that's 10 amos or less is treated like an opening of a doorway. If it's more than 10 amos, then it's not a pesach, it's a pirze. It's like it's an opening, it's breached, and it's not just a doorway. So what are we talking about over here? If the opening was 10 amos, so what's the difference? Why if this opening was on one side, I consider it to be a doorway, and it's still properly enclosed, even if there's a breach on two sides, it should also be considered to be just a doorway, and it should still be properly enclosed. So you're going to say we're talking about a breach, it's more than 10 amos. So then even if the breach was on one side as well. So what's the significance of dafka a breach in two sides? Answers the Gemara, really the breach was only the width of 10 amos. So therefore, really, it still should be treated as a doorway. But what's the difference? The breach happened where? In the corner. In the corner, over here, the pischa, bekeren zavis lo yavdi yenchi. A person does not usually make an opening in a corner. So therefore, b'derech klal, when you have an opening that's 10 amos, that's considered to be a doorway. But in a corner, since it's not the derech of a person to make a doorway in the corner, even if it's 10 amos, it's already considered to be a breach that's open to the Rishus HaRabim, and therefore can't carry there. Even if it's 10 amos or less, correct.
So you need it on both sides?
Look in the picture Tafkuf Nun Ches. In the corner.
So you need it on both sides?
What do you mean by what? In the corner, which includes opening? Shnei Ruchisa means the corner. The Gemara is teaching. That's what it means, because the corner, the breach includes from both sides. Yeah. Okay. Picture Tafkuf Nun Ches. Okay. Now the Gemara goes on and asks a similar question, but we get to the next case of the Mishnah. It said in the Mishnah, "V'chein bayis shenifratz mishtei ruchayisav," a house that the walls of two sides were broken down. So also it's considered to be an opening to the Rishus HaRabim. So now what's the difference? If there's a wall that's broken in a house from one side. So by a house it's actually even better than a chutzner. By a house, what's the klal? You say pi tikra yored v'saisim. As long as you have a roof, the roof is considered as if it extends down and encloses that area. So if you have a breach on one side, the roof encloses it. So if you have a breach in the wall from two sides, why don't I apply the same rule that the roof is as if it comes down and it encloses that area? So the Gemara answers, Amri de Beirav, Mishmei de Rav, the same answer. Number one, the opening happened in the corner, right? So therefore, in the corner, it's not the derech of a person to make a pesach in such a way. So therefore, it's a real pirza. And also, you have the roof that should be considered to be an enclosure. But we're talking about a roof that's ba'alachzayin, diagonal. Or how do they teach alachzayin over there? Is that the word they use? A roof that comes down. The roof's the way, huh? Okay, alachzayin, a diagonal roof. Take a look and picture Tov Kuf Nun Tes. Okay, you have many houses that have a flat roof, and this is a roof that comes down diagonally. What's the difference? What's the significance of a diagonal roof? So Rashi explains the concept of Pi Tikra Yored V'Saisim needs to have at the edge of the roof that the roof itself should be a thickness of a tefach. That thickness of a tefach, then the halacha to extend down and enclose on the roof applies. But if you have a roof that comes down diagonally, so then it ends at the end and very, very narrow. It ends like with a mashahu. So you don't have... Similar concept when you have a diagonal wall, correct. Yeah, similar concept. So over here, because it comes down and it doesn't have that thickness of a tefach at the edge of it, so you don't say pi tikra yored v'saisa. That's the pshat in our Mishnah. Shmuel says, now Shmuel goes back to explain not only b'negei to bayis, but also b'negei to chutzner. What was our question before regarding a chutzner? Why is it saying the Mishnah only if it was open on two sides, then it's a problem, not if it was open on one side? Says Shmuel, a different shot. Afile b'yeser me'eser. The case in our Mishnah is that the breach is more than 10 amas. If the breach is more than 10 amas, as we asked before, even from one side, it should also be a problem. And answers the Gemara, you're right. Really, even from one side, it's also a problem. But mishum bias, the only reason it says in the Mishnah that the opening was on two sides is because by a house, only if it's open on two sides is it going to be a problem. Because by a house, you have an additional advantage, the pitikra. And the halacha of pitikra will only work if you have an opening on one side, not if you have an opening on two sides. Okay, but the Gemara asks on that right away. What do you mean? Ubai is gufe tikshi. The question should still be by a house as well. What difference is there between one side and two sides? Why by one side, the amrina on pi tikra yored v'saisim? If one wall is breached, so you can rely on the roof to enclose the area. From both sides, you should also rely on pi tikra yored v'saisim. Name it pi tikra yored v'saisim. So what did Shmuel say? The only reason it says by a chatzah that the opening is on both sides is because by a house, only if it's open on two sides, then I don't say pi tikra yored v'saisim. But it's not true. By a house, whether you're missing one wall, whether you're missing two walls, you still say pi tikra yored v'saisim, that the roof encloses it. Another question the Gemara asks, who's the one that gave this answer now? Shmuel. V'su, mi isla l'Shmuel pi tikra yored v'saisim? Does Shmuel Bechlal agree to this entire concept of pi tikra yored v'saisim? We had already before. V'ha'itma, we learned an argument, achsadra bebika, when you have an achsadra and a bika, which is over here in picture Tov Kuf Samach Hey, you have from the next page, if you want to see the picture, Tov Kuf Samach Hey, yep, that picture, that one right over there, yes. So you have 4 poles and a roof above it, in the middle of a big bika. Rav says it's considered to be enclosed because of the pi tikra, the roof that encloses it. And Shmuel says you cannot. So you see that Shmuel does not even hold to this whole concept of pi tikra yored v'saisim. Says the Gemara, no, halei kashya. You're arguing that Shmuel doesn't hold of pi tikra yored v'saisim. That's not true. Ki Leslie, when does Shmuel not hold of pi tikra yored v'saisim bedalit? If you're going to be using the roof to create an enclosure on all 4 sides. Avul b'shalish, if it's less than that, if you're only making an enclosure on 3 sides, islay. There he does hold pi tikra yored v'saisim. So therefore, that's not a question. Shmuel does hold of the concept of pi tikra yored v'saisim, but not to this extent. Not if you have to use it on all 4 sides. But frak the Gemara, mikol makaim kashya. However, the other question that we asked is still a question. Why are you telling me that by a house, pi tikra yored v'saisim only works for 1 wall and not for 2 walls? Shmuel holds you could say pi tikra yored v'saisim even for 3 walls. So the Gemara answers, the Gemara now is going to explain that our Mishnah is talking about a case that you're going to have to use pi tikra yored v'saisim for 4 walls. How is that possible? Let's see. So the Gemara, Amri Beirav, similar to what we said before according to Rav. Mishmei de Rav, the name of Rav. So what did we say before according to Rav? That it's talking about a diagonal roof and therefore pi tikra yored v'saisim does not apply because it doesn't have that thickness of a tefach. So we're going to say a similar thing according to Shmuel. Hachanami kagoyin shenifratz bekeren zavis. The opening is in a corner, and the kiruyoi ba'arba, and it's in such a way that you're going to have to use the pi tikra yored v'saisim in 4 different places, and the reason is because the roof is breached in 4 tfachim in. Okay, to understand what this means, and we have a picture here in Rashi, which is not easy to understand, but take a look in picture Tov Kuf Samach Beis. Okay, so if you see picture Tov Kuf Samach Beis, so this house, there's 2 issues. The issue number 1 is that the wall in the corner is opened up. So you have the wall opened up on both sides, on the tzafon and on the mizrach, and that's what it said clearly in the Mishnah, that the wall is open up. But then the kimta here is, besides that, the roof is also breached 4 tfachim going in. See, the roof doesn't extend to the end of the house. The roof is also breached. So now if you look over here at this picture, you'll see that you're going to have to say pi tikra yored v'saisim in 4 distinct areas. You have 4 tfachim that you have to consider it as if it comes down, then 5 amas, then another 5 amas, then another 4 tfachim. So you're applying the concept of pi tikra yored v'saisim in 4 different places. And that's what Shmuel holds is too much. Again, Shmuel's opinion is I could only extend the roof downward is if it's 3 areas. But if it's 4 areas, you have to extend it downward. That you don't say. So that was the pshat in our Mishnah, and therefore, in this breach, it's going to be open to the Rishus Harabim. So now the Gemara explains this in the lashon of the Mishnah. Shmuel did not want to learn like Rav's opinion alachsain, that we're talking about a roof that comes down diagonally, and therefore you don't say pitichri yoyde v'saisim because alachsain like katani. Again, Shmuel leyama karav because alachsain like katani. Since it doesn't say in the word the Mishnah the word alachsain, so he considers that to be a deichik. But Rav leyama k'Shmuel, on the other hand, Rav doesn't agree to Shmuel that we're talking over here about this case where the roof is also breached, because then then it's similar to an achsadra where you're using pi tikra yored v'saisim in 4 different areas, and therefore it doesn't say that in the Mishnah, so it's a deichik. The Gemara brings back again the machlokes that we said before. V'Rav l'taimei, and additionally Rav follows his opinion. The Omar achsadra muta l'taltel b'kula. That an achsadra, so it wouldn't be a problem. So Shmuel is making a kimta in the Mishnah that it's breached, and therefore you have to say pi tikra yored v'saisim in 4 different areas. According to Rav, that's not an issue. The itmar, again, like we just said before, achsadra bebika. If you have an achsadra in a big valley, Rav Amar mutl taltel b'kula, Shmuel Amar ein metaltelim ba elabar ba'amis. And as we explained before, Rav Amar mutl taltel b'kula amrinam pi tikra yored v'saisim, that you extend down the roof in all 4 areas. So therefore, in our Mishnah, if you would say you have to extend down the roof in 4 areas, it's not an issue. You do not say pi tikra yored v'saisim in 4 different sides. You only say it in 3 sides, not more. Okay, so that explains the Mishnah. Now the Gemara says one more point regarding this machlekes. So again, now we're going to be talking about this case of the achsadra, which is pictured Tov Kuf Samachei, when you have this roof with 4 poles around it. So this is the case of the machlekes of Rav and Shmuel. The Gemara now brings 2 opinions exactly when they're arguing. One opinion is be'eser, if the width between one pole and another is only 10 amas, kula amale pligi. They're not going to argue. They're going to agree that you say pita created desaisim. And Rashi explains, because as we always say, when it comes to a space that's 10 amas or less, we don't treat it like a real pirza. It's not a real opening. It's like a pesach. It's like a doorway. So in such a case, everybody would agree. Ki pligi be yeser me eser. If the width from one pole to another is more than 10 amas, then there's a machlekes. But there are others that say the opposite. Beyeser, if it's more than 10 ames, kula amalei pligi. Nobody's going to argue that that's a problem because it's too far. Ki pligi be'eser. The argument of Rav and Shmuel, whether you say pitikra yored v'saisim in this case for all 4 walls, is when the space between one pole and another is 10 ames or less. That's when they're arguing. Okay, so this is the machlokes of Rav and Shmuel when they get to pitikra yored v'saisim.